Hey team, Coach Malik here. And in this training, we're going to be talking about the perfect pitch blueprint. And the pitch is going to be a very crucial aspect inside of our sales processes. And this is going to be a major step in us being able to help you close and sell high paying clients into your program. So this is where we're going to be talking about the parts of the perfect pitch blueprint, the common mistakes. We're going to go over how to create one, the different steps on how to create it, and then how to compile it all together. So that way you are ready to start taking on strategy sessions and start taking on clients and actually sell them into your program. So with that being said, let's jump right on in. So the first thing we want to do is we want to actually go ahead and explain what the pitch actually is. All right. So let's actually recap our entire sales process. So we know that the 5 core functions of the money machine, the sales system is one of the systems. Now, this entire processes, the 5 core functions actually work cohesively. So if you take the sales system out of the function, then you can't actually move forward, right? Because you can have the best lead gen system, you can have the best lead nurture system, but if your sales processes and your sales system is not dialed in, then it blocks the entire flow, because all of this is necessary for you to be able to get high paying client. All right. And then we also know that inside of the sales system, there are multiple tools that we use to be able to sell the program or whatever it is that you may be selling at that time, which will be phone over Zoom, webinar masterclasses, sales pages, live events, in-person sales funnels, whatever it may be, which also included in sales pages. You have multitudes of different tools that you can use to be able to make sales happen. All right. And our primary mode that we're going to be using is over the phone and Zoom. And now we know that there are 2 sales processes that we're going to be understanding primarily. One is going to be the VSL and the second one is the community strategy. And we're going to start with the community strategy first. That way you can validate your offer. That way you can get very good on your pricing structure. That way you can get your systems and processes and operations dialed in and really help you guys understand something we call product market fit, which is really getting you guys to have an understanding of, hey, this is the program that I offer for this type of market, and this is the people that I help, and this is going back to helping you productize your program. So you're going to start with the community strategy, do a lot of experimentation and figure out what it is that you need, and then you're just going to transfer that over into the VSL by adding a little bit more steps into it to nurture your leads versus the community strategy. You're going to be actually adding people inside of the community and building relationships inside of there. So now that we've done a quick recap of the sales process, let's actually go in and talk about what the sales pitch actually is. All right. So the sales pitch is actually just a quick presentation that the salesperson gives to the prospect. And what you're really doing is you're explaining what your business is all about, right? What is the benefit that your business will offer to the prospect, and how actually are you going to solve their problem? Because that's really all what people care about is, what is this about? What can you offer me, and how can you solve my problem? All right. Now, the sales pitch, or just pitch is what we actually call it, is probably one of the most important parts of the perfect run after the discovery. So we know that we have 6 parts to the perfect run, which is our sales process or our sales script, right? We have the intro, we have the pre-frame, we have discovery, we have the transition and coaching, we have the pitch, we have commitment and price. Now, all of these are extremely important, but the ones that are very crucial are going to be the discovery and the pitch, because the pitch does a lot of the heavy lifting. Now, the reason it's called a pitch or an elevator pitch, it's because back in the day, you wanted to be able to actually explain your pitch or do a quick pitch from the time it takes you to get from the lobby to the floor that the individual was trying to actually get to. And that's why it was called an elevator pitch, which would only take 2 to 3 minutes. And we'll explain to you why that's actually a problem now. So to help you understand these 6 parts, you've got the intro, you got the pre-frame, you got the discovery, you got the transition and coaching, then you've got this entire pitch section, which we are going to be diving into in this training particularly. So just to go over the perfect run again, we've got your intro, you got your pre-frame, the discovery, transition and coaching, then you got the pitch, and this is what we're going to be deep diving into inside of this training section to make sure that you understand all the nuances and the pieces that go along with that. And then you've got your commitment and price, and that's when you're going to be closing the sale. So now that you understand where the pitch actually occurs, let's actually dive into talking about the pitch and the old way of pitching. All right. Now, many salespeople, when they're making their pitch, it's less thorough. And what they're actually doing is they're giving more of like a 2-minute synopsis, like a very vague overview of what they do. Right. And when you do that, what ends up happening is the prospect is more confused because you've only given them a 2-minute overview. They don't have a thorough explanation of what it is that you do. And so what ends up happening is people will actually ask for more information, or they'll just go, hey, can you just send me your website? That way I can just get more information there, because you were unable to relay information in your 2-minute vague overview, right? Now imagine getting on a call and you get a 2-minute pitch and then the person just asks you like, hey, do you want to buy? Of course you wouldn't buy, because obviously we want to be an educated buyer. And so the old way of pitching is giving a brief 2-minute overview of how you can help the person. It's not helpful because the post-trust era has put a lot of the buying decision in the prospect's hand. All right. Now, another common theme that you will see in sales is that many people will actually sell features rather than selling futures, right? Why does that not actually work anymore? Because we know from the sales foundations is that people buy the end result, right? People buy futures, not features. They just want to buy the end result, which will be status or whatever is the thing that they are trying to achieve. Now, a lot of people are trying to sell their features. The challenge with that is now you have to make your features bigger and better, right? And so market sophistication, or people getting used to being sold to, has increased, right? And there's more and more people in the marketplace. And so in order for you to make better offers, you have to make better and badder offers, and they have to be bigger and more glamorous. And that's the problem with marketing. With marketing, you can make these grandesque offers, but you have to make sure that you can actually deliver on those promises, right? Because before in the online space, most people were using automated tactics, right? They'll use webinars, sales pages. They weren't actually getting people over the phone. Now it's very common for somebody to schedule a call and actually sell a prospect. So what this does is we got to step our game up, right? Because if everybody's doing this, we have to be better. And now the buyer has the purchasing option and they have more control. And so we want to make sure that we lead from a place of information, we lead from a place of value, we lead from a place of making sure that the prospect understands the decision that they are making. All right. And so the dynamics really just have shifted, and the person who has the best offer is the person that's going to win, not the person that has the best sales people or the sales processes. All right. So it's really going to come down to the offer. What is it that you're offering the prospect? How is it that you're actually going to be able to solve their problem? That is what's going to really separate you from the competition, because everybody out there is just making bigger and badder offers when all you have to do is make a good offer, a logical offer. It doesn't have to be bigger and badder. It just has to be a logical offer that makes sense to the individual, that I can see myself getting to the end result from my current situation to my desired situation using this process. All right. So moving along, let's talk a little bit about why is the pitch so important, because it's technically 75% of the reason why you're going to get results, right? 75% of your success or failure of your sales process comes down to your offer, right? And the cool thing is, if you have a great offer, right? If you have a logical, concise, clear offer that relays to the individual how you can solve their problem, you don't have to be the best salesperson. You could be an average salesperson, but the offer is so good that they're actually going to want to buy. And so the offer is what actually makes and facilitates the sales process, and it actually makes it 10 times easier. So we're going to take a detour a little bit and talk a little bit about what is exactly an offer, right? What actually is it? So we know that 75% of the success or failure of your sales process is going to come down to your offer. Now, the reason for that prospects will shift more towards people that actually have the best offer. Now, when we say best offer, that means that it's logical and they can understand how it's going to get them from their current situation to their desired situation. You'll hear me repeat this a lot because that's all sales really is. Sales is just about relaying to the individual currently where they're at and where they're trying to go. So really helping them get from point A all the way to point B. And if you can paint that clear picture of how to get from point A to point B and why the things that they've tried in the past have not worked and why they failed, you will be the person that they trust, because not only have you created certainty, you've created authority, but your offer actually makes sense and it makes logical sense for them to actually make the decision, because people make decisions based off of emotions and they justify it by logic. All right. Now, moving along, let's actually understand what an offer actually is. So in the $100 million offers by Alex Hormozi, right, this is the definition of what an offer actually is. So I'm going to read this with you guys. So the only way to conduct business is through a value exchange. All right. An exchange of value, a trade of dollars for value. So you have a program and you're going to charge dollars for it. Now, the offer is what initiates this trade. All right. What you have to offer, right, relays the value that you have to offer, and therefore you're able to trade that for dollars. So the offer is the goods and services that you agree to give or provide, how you accept payment, and the terms of the agreement. So what does that mean? Right? The offer is what you're going to provide to the individual, how you're going to take the payment, and the terms of what the agreement is going to look like and how you're going to fulfill on there. And what begins the process is getting customers and making money. So this is what allows you to actually start getting customers. And it's the first thing any new customer is going to interact with in your business, right? Because you're making offers all the time. And that's what offers actually do, is offers attract new customers. So when you're running ads, let's look at a few examples. The offer that you're making is the free asset. Hey, download this free asset. This will help you do X, Y, and Z. That's the offer. When you're doing live trainings inside of your community, you're making an offer to schedule a call, right? When you're doing sales calls, the offer that you're making is, hey, this is what the process looks like if you commit to working with me. And how likely are they actually going to be successful, because you have a step-by-step process into getting them results. So that is the offer inside of the sales call. And this is what we are going to be focusing on in this training, is how do you make really good offers inside of the sales call so the person feels stupid saying no. So in the long run, the better your offer is, right, the more compelling it is from an emotional standpoint, and then justifying it by logic, right, the easier it's going to become for people to actually sign up. All right. So now that you understand the old way of pitching, you understand what an offer is, let's actually go into the new way of pitching. All right. So the new way of pitching a prospect is, we want to make sure that the prospect leaves the call, or once you've made the offer, empowered and educated. All right. You want to make sure that the prospect feels empowered and educated, because again, in the post-trust era, people and prospects are the ones that have the buying decision. All right. And you want the prospect to actually feel a part of that decision rather than shoving something down their throat. You are educating them, because most people want to be educated. They appreciate education, right? And it should feel like you're enlightening the conversation and they've had an incredible conversation with you. That is what we're trying to do. And the entire focus of the pitch is to create a logical bridge. All right. What we're trying to do is we're trying to create a step-by-step process to help the prospect see, this is where you're at, this is where you need to go, and this is why the things that you've tried in the past has not worked. Right? By creating an out-of-this-world pitch using the perfect pitch blueprint, what's going to happen is, not only are you going to be the best salesperson that the person's ever spoken with, but you're going to have a great offer that's perfectly tailored to their situation. And this is what the pitch actually allows us to do if it's actually done correctly. That's why it's so important. It allows us to build connection. It allows us to build authority, and it allows us to share with the prospect what our game plan is, so they can see what the value they're going to receive from our program and what that is actually going to look like. All right. Now, moving along, there's a few different parts to the perfect pitch blueprint. All right. And let's kind of walk you through the three parts that exist. All right. So there's three parts to the perfect pitch blueprint, which are the high level promise, the pillars to results, and the delivery. All right. So if we look at the pitch as a whole here, these three pieces are going to go inside of the pitch. So we've got the high level promise, we've got the pillars to results, and then we have the delivery. So let's actually break these down and help you understand each one of these key elements. All right. So the first one is going to be the high level promise. Now, this is going to be 1 to 2 sentences that clarifies the end result of your offer and how you're going to help them achieve it. All right. And what the high level promise does, it actually allows the prospect to focus on the end result rather than the process, because at this point, they're going to want to get into the nitty gritty and they're going to want to know the step by step. But we want to pre-frame before we get into the pillars to results that the whole goal is to focus on the end result. Otherwise, the prospect is going to be focused on the nitty gritty. All right. Now, don't worry. We're going to dive into the exact framework on how to create a high level promise. But for now, we just want you to understand that it is one of the key components that go into your pitch. All right. Now, moving along, the next one is the pillars to results. All right. Now, once we've made the high level promise, the next thing we're going to dive into is the pillars to results. Now, what are these? The pillar to results are the 3 to 5 logical steps that give the prospect clarity on the step-by-step process that they need to get from point A to point B. All right. So the pillars to results are the 3 to 5 logical steps that give the prospect clarity on the step-by-step process to get from point A to point B. As we do that, simultaneously, we want to actually be able to explain why they are stuck where they're at and why the things that they've tried in the past have not worked and how this will be different. And this is the phase where you'll be able to sprinkle in your unique mechanism. That way you'll be able to help them justify why this time is going to be different and why this time is going to be better. So think of it like doing a mini becoming journal with the person inside of your sales call where you identify that's their current situation. This is their desired situation. Well, these are the steps that they need to take to get there. And that is what you're going to be relaying in the pillars to results. All right. And again, we're going to dive deeper into these to make sure that you understand how to actually execute and create these. All right. Now, moving along to the third step in the pitch phase, right? This is the last phase of the pitch. And this is going to be the delivery. And this is where you're going to be explaining how everything is going to be delivered and why we are delivering it this way. So first, with the high level promise, we went into, hey, this is going to be the steps to get you to where it is that you want to go. Then in the pillars to results, we talked about, okay, these are the steps and these are the explanations of those steps and why it's so important to actually take these steps. Now it's going to talk about, okay, how are we actually going to deliver on those steps? What is it actually going to look like? Because once the person understands the pillars to results, the next thing they're going to want to know is not what the process is, but how will this actually work? Right? That's what they want to know. And so logically, we want to address that as the next thing. So don't worry, we're going to have a in-depth training to actually go and help you create the delivery. That way you're not overwhelmed. And that's what's going to be coming up in the later training sections. All right. So as we move along here, the next thing we want to cover is the common mistakes when creating the pitch. All right. Now, as with anything, or when you create anything, people will develop good habits and people will develop bad habits. So if this is your first time doing sales or creating a pitch, this is going to be great for you to develop new habits right from the get-go and develop the right habits. Now, if you've done sales in the past, you're going to have to make a conscious effort of getting away from the quick overview 2-minute pitches to now being able to educate the prospect on making the right decision for them. So there's 3 mistakes that we see when creating the pitch. And the first one is tactics over principles. The second one is sounding scripted. And then the third one is not keeping it simple and overcomplicating the script. All right. And so this is where we're going to break this down into a little bit more detail. So the first one being tactics over principles. So what a lot of people do when they're creating the script, they just get caught up with like fancy names or benefits or unique mechanisms and X, Y, and Z. And the reality is all you have to do is you just have to anchor the cost, right? How will this pillar or this high level promise, how is this going to help the individual get from their current situation to their desired situation? That is it. That's all you're trying to relay. And our first goal is to nail that. The goal is to nail the principles. If we can help inside of the pitch, if we can help the prospect understand that this is the step-by-step process that you need to go from point A to point B, right? And really helping them understand the things that you've tried in the past, why they haven't worked, right? And how this is going to be different. Now we're set. Right? That is the first element that we want to nail inside of our pitch. Not fancy names, not fancy methods. Our goal is to relay simply, this is the step-by-step process that will take you from point A to point B. I'm going to help you with this. This is why the things that you've tried in the past have not worked, and this is how this is going to be different. And as long as the prospect has certainty and clarity on how your process actually works, they're going to buy. All right. Now, moving along to common mistake number 2 is sounding too scripted, right? So the first time when you create your pitch, it's not going to sound perfect. It's going to sound off. It's not going to sound natural. It's going to sound clunky. And that's normal. Our first goal is to actually script it out and then actually practice it so it actually sounds natural. Because the point of the pitch, it's actually to be a dialogue, not a PowerPoint presentation, right? And the only way that it's going to be a dialogue is if we actually practice it. So think of your favorite movies, right? Your favorite movies that you watch, those are all scripted. But when you actually see the actor or actress playing that role, it sounds like improv, right? Because they've practiced the script over and over and over again. So once you actually script everything out and write everything out, the whole goal is to start practicing it, start tweaking it, changing the nuances of how it sounds so everything rolls off of your tongue. And that is what's actually going to add authority. And that's what's going to give you the confidence in your process, because for the prospect, they just need to know that you believe in the process more than they do. They don't know the process, right? You're explaining the process. But if you explain it naturally and you explain it in a way where you've done this hundreds and thousands of times, right? Because would you go to a plastic surgeon who's only done a surgery once? Or would you go to a plastic surgeon that's done 10,000 surgeries and they've done the reps over and over again? Which one would you trust? Right? You would obviously trust the one that's done 10,000 surgeries. And so that's the way you want to sound. You want to sound as if you know what you're talking about. And the way that you do that is by practicing it so it flows like it's your second nature and it's something that you've done over and over and over again. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is by creating the pitch, scripting it out, and then actually practicing it, changing the nuances so that it rolls off of your tongue. All right, so moving on to the third common mistake that we see is that a lot of people make things too challenging. And that's why I know it's a very different headline where we say keep it simple. You want to even make it even more simpler. So people are like, oh, I've made it really simple. I've added unique names to it. It's fancy and stuff. But here's the truth, like confused prospects don't buy. When you're confused, you're not going to buy. You're trying to understand everything. So don't complicate it. Don't make it too wordy. If you think it's simple, simplify it even more. All right. And now don't worry. We're going to help you break all of this down. And this is where you have the community, you have the support to actually make your pitch even better, just like your SPICE frameworks, just like your ad copy. You have all of these resources to make this pitch even better. The goal is to help you understand these common mistakes. So when you're actually designing your pitch, all these things are in the back of your subconscious and you already know them and you're already aware of them. All right. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this wraps up our pitch explained section. If you have any questions about the section or anything that we discussed, make sure to go ahead and ask us inside of the student community. Now, these were just the foundations, the principles that you need to know to make sure that we can execute on creating an amazing script for you so you can actually start getting high paying clients. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, please let us know. With that, we will catch you guys in the next training section. Well, all right, team. Welcome back. In this training section, we're going to be walking you through the perfect pitch blueprint creation. And we're really just going to be explaining all the processes and the steps that actually go into creating the perfect pitch blueprint, what the three parts are, how we are going to approach it. That way you have a very clear picture, nothing seems lost, and that way you can understand how we're actually going to break this down. So with that being said, let's dive right on in. So we know that the perfect run has the pitch, right? It comes right after the transition and coaching section, and then we dive right into the pitch. Now we know the pitch has three phases to it. Phase number one is going to be the high level promise, then the pillars to results, and then we go into the delivery. All right. So the first thing that we're actually going to do is we're actually going to create the pillars to results. That's the first thing that we're going to do. So we're actually going to approach this first, then we're going to move on to the other two steps. Now, this is where we're going to spend majority of the time in the pitch, because this is really the meat and the potatoes of the pitch in and of itself. And this is where we're going to explain the 3 to 5 logical steps that give the prospect clarity on the step-by-step process that they need to get from point A to point B, while explaining why they got stuck, why they haven't been able to accomplish their goals, and how this time is going to be different. Right? And we're going to walk you through the step-by-step inside of the training on how to actually do that, but we're actually going to approach the pillars to results first. Then we're actually going to move on to the high level promise. All right. So first, when we create the pillars to results, then we're going to move on to the high level promise. And this is going to be the 1 to 2 sentences that clarifies and states the end results of your offer. All right. Because we don't want to get the prospect really too focused on the process in and of itself. We want them to stay bought into the end result that they're going to achieve. Because if they get too bought into the process, then they're going to think that it's too hard and it's not what they want to achieve. And at the end of the day, people buy the end result. All right. So the first one is going to be the pillars to results. The second one is going to be the high level promise. Then we move on to the third phase, which is creating the delivery. All right. And these are going to explain how everything is going to be delivered. So everything that you described in the pillars for results, all right, how is that actually going to be delivered? How am I going to be able to execute on that and utilize those steps that you just shared with me? Now, once we've actually gone through and did the hard work and heavy lifting for all of those three, then we're going to actually put it all together and actually assemble it. We're going to organize it. And the way we're going to organize it is going to be in this flow, where the first thing is going to be the high level promise. The second is going to be the pillars to results. And the third is going to be the delivery. Now, when we create this, okay, so when we actually put it together, this is going to be the flow. When we actually create it, we're going to create this first, we're going to create this second, and then we're going to create the delivery third. All right. I know it's a little bit off. It might be confusing. This is what the natural flow is. And I want to explain that. Okay. The high level promise comes first. The pillars to results comes second. And then the delivery comes third. But we are going to create the pillars to results first, because without the pillars, you cannot have the high level promise or the delivery. That is why we actually create the pillars first. Now, this entire process is going to help you create your perfect pitch blueprint. But here's the thing. It's not going to be perfect the first go around, right? Just like with your spice messaging, it's going to take multiple iterations to it. So what's going to happen is you're going to create this, you're going to jump on sales calls, and then you're going to tweak it. You're going to jump on another sales call. You're going to tweak it, right? You have this hypothesis that you're creating. Then over time, when you get real world experience, you actually create multiple variations of it. So we really just want to remind you that don't get caught up with trying to make it perfect your first go around, right? Don't major in the minors. Focus on getting your version 1.0 done, and really just make sure that it actually flows, that it sounds like a dialogue, and it has the principles that we are aiming for, right? Really, the biggest thing that you should be wanting to accomplish with this is that it's simple and it easily communicates to the prospect what you're going to help them achieve and how you're going to help them achieve it. And then over time, you'll be able to create multiple iterations of it and perfect it as you actually get real world experience. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up the perfect pitch blueprint creation explained training. If you have any questions about this section or anything that we discussed, make sure to go ahead and ask us inside of the student community, and we'll catch you guys in the next training section. All right, team, welcome back. And in this training section, we're going to be talking about creating the pillars to results. All right. And so let's just do a quick recap of where we are at. So the pillars to results are the 3 to 5 logical steps that give the prospect clarity on the step-by-step process that they need to get from point A to point B. You probably heard this 1,000 times. We're going to say it over and over and over again. All right. So let's also do a recap of where we're at inside of these steps. So we know that the perfect run has 6 parts to it. It's got the intro, it's got the pre-frame, it's got the discovery, the transition and coaching. Then we go into the pitch, which is the section that we are in, and then the commitment and price. Now, the pitch is the 5th step and the most crucial step in the entire sales process after discovery. And this is where you're going to be sharing your offer with the prospect on how you can actually help them. And there's 3 parts to the pitch, right? We have the high level promise, the pillars to results, and then the delivery. All right. So what we're going to do in this training specifically, we're going to work on the pillars, right? Identifying the pillars. Then we're going to work on naming the pillars. Then we are going to explain the pillars and the explanation that goes along with this. All right. And the reason we work on the pillars to results first and not the high level promise is because the high level promise can only be created once we've actually created the pillars to results, because this is the meat and potatoes of the pitch. This is where majority of the time is going to be spent. The high level promise is just 1 to 2 sentences. That's why we need to create this so we can actually create the high level promise and then the delivery. All right. Now, also the pillars and the explanation, like we said, is going to be 80% of the pitch. So you want to make sure you can spend as much time on it as possible. Now, when we're designing the pillars, there are 2 parts that we're going to go into. First, we're going to come up with these steps and then we're going to turn them into pillars. And we'll explain what that is in just a second. Then we're actually going to work on creating an explanation for each pillar. So this is going to be the most in-depth training that you're going to be going through inside of the pitch series. All right. Now, sometimes the steps in the pitch can actually get confused with the fulfillment frameworks that you guys actually created in Spice Messaging. Now, can you use some of the fulfillment frameworks as your steps for your pitch? You absolutely can, only if it makes sense. Now, majority of the time, the fulfillment frameworks are primarily used for marketing, right? Versus the pitch pillars are used for the sale. And when we say the sale, it helps the prospect understand how your program specifically will get them to the end result. All right. Versus marketing is generally explaining the entire process or the program as a whole. And marketing is trying to sell one thing. Right. And so if you remember the marketing from Remote Wellness, our Spice Messaging was all around avoid spending money to make money, transformation, not information, client selection and attraction. Right. Then we had the combination of these 3 other marketing Spice frameworks, right, which is information overwhelm, people struggling with getting things done, remote technology, and that's the center of Remote Wellness. Now, when it comes to our pitch, right, our 3 steps in the pitch is Remote Wellness Accelerator, high paying clients, and stabilizing and growing a long-term business. This has nothing to do with the marketing message, because the 3 pitch steps or pillars are going to be the crucial standing points in helping the prospect understand what does it look like to get themselves from point A to point B using our program or our services, right? And so for us, we have Remote Wellness Accelerator, which is, hey, we're going to get you certified and we're going to give you the business education that you need. Then we're going to help you get high paying clients. Then we're going to help you stabilize and grow a long-term business. See how this is all in chronological order, but it's not what is hyped up in marketing, is what is actually realistic. This is what the process is actually going to look like once they come into the program. And that is what the 3 key pillars is going to be, is what can they expect when they come inside of the program. And that's why these pillars are going to be very, very, very important. All right. Now, before we can actually jump into the creating of the pillars, we got to get into the nitty-gritty and make sure that you understand the key pieces that make up the pillar themselves. All right. Now, we know that the pillars are the 3 to 5 steps that get the prospect clarity on the step-by-step process that they need to get from point A all the way to point B. And our goal is to share those steps with the prospect. And we want all of the prospects to say, that makes perfect sense. Like, thank you so much for sharing that. That gives me a ton of clarity. And this will help them see how they're going to be able to go from their current situation to their desired situation. And that's what's going to help them see the things that they've tried in the past have not worked, right? So our goal is to set up and explain these steps first. And that's going to build the certainty. It's going to eliminate fears. It's going to future pace the prospect. And it's actually going to let them know what the next steps are as well. Now, while you create your steps, you can choose to give them unique names and even introduce your unique mechanism if you wanted to. And we'll show you which ones that you can tweak specifically to actually make it fit the flow that we have found best. But you want to be careful where it doesn't sound too forced or it doesn't end up sounding fake, right? Because you'll come up with like a proprietary method when it's like, just stop, just give it to me very straightforward, because I don't really care about a proprietary message. The simpler, the better. So there are 3 key elements that we want to aim for, or a checklist, when you're creating your pillars. Okay. Number 1, you want to make sure it gives the prospect clarity and a step-by-step process that they need to take, and it makes complete sense, right? We want to make sure that it hits this criteria. Number 2, when you explain the steps, it should also provide clarity as to why everything they've tried in the past has not worked, right? Now, number 3, the steps don't need to be fancy and have special names to them, all right? So keep it really, really, really simple. Now, here's a few examples of what that actually is going to look like. So these are the steps for Remote Wellness Academy, all right? So you have Remote Wellness Accelerator, which is the business, the certification and the business coaching. Then you have the high-paying clients. Then you have the stabilizing and growing a long-term business. Really simple, right? This is Neutrophil Wellness, right? Hey, these are the foundational skills that you need for a health transformation. So what are the foundational skills? You're going to learn about sleep. You're going to learn about movement. You're going to learn about nutrition. You're going to learn about stress management, right? Very simple. Then we're going to turn all of those behaviors, all of those skills that we've created, and we're going to turn them into behaviors. Right? See how it's a logical standpoint? First, we're going to teach you skills. Then we're going to turn them into behaviors. Then we're going to support you with world-class support so this actually happens. And then we're going to teach you how to maintain that for life. Notice how that's like a very logical step. Like if I was to explain that to you and we would say, hey, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to help you develop the skills that you need to get a transformation. Then we're going to turn those skills into behaviors. Then we're going to provide world-class support and accountability to make sure that you stick with it. And then we're going to maintain and make sure that you get those results for life. Does that make sense? See how clear and concise that is? It's a very clear chronological path for the person to get from where they're at to where they're trying to go. And that's what we're trying to relay with the steps. Now, there's going to be an explanation that goes along with the steps so you can dive deeper and further explain what they are. But for now, we're just going to be focusing on creating the pillar steps first, right? We're just going to create the steps first, then we're going to create the explanation later. So moving along here, what we're going to do, team, is we're going to switch over to a mini training where we're going to walk you through the step-by-step process on how to create the pillars and make sure that you have every tool that you need and the worksheets that you need to go about this and do this properly. So with that being said, we're going to switch over to this mini training now. All right, welcome team to this mini training where we're going to walk you through the step-by-step process on how to create your pillars. And this is going to be the first step in the entire pitch creation process and the perfect pitch blueprint, where we're going to create the pillars first, then the explanation for them, then go over into the high level promise, then create the delivery. All right, so let's jump right on into this. So the first thing we want you to do is we want you to open up and copy the pillar creation worksheet. All right, so the way you'll be able to do that is you come over here to file, you're going to go ahead and make a copy, and then you're going to go ahead and make a copy for you to have access to. All right, then we're going to just follow along this worksheet and actually work through this. So the first thing we're going to do is you're going to go ahead and define the current situation and the desired situation of your prospect. So the question that you want to ask yourself is, number 1, what is the current situation that the prospect or my clients are in right now? So if you have clients that you're working with and you know their current situation, it's going to be very, very, very useful for you to jot all of those current situations down. All right. Then what is the desired situation that the prospect wants to achieve? And then you're going to be able to make a list of the desired situation that they want to have happen. Now, list as many as you can using a brain dump, right? Just dump everything that you have, the ideas that come to mind. And you can even use ChatGPT as a resource and even your swipe file to actually tap into. All right. Then we're going to move on to brainstorming the steps. All right. So we're going to ask ourselves, what are the steps that helped you go from your current situation to desired situation. It could be you, it could be the prospect. What are the steps that you're going to take to get the person from point A all the way to point B? What are the nitty-gritty nuances that you're going to help them get to where they want to go? So you want to list all of those out in chronological order. Now, don't worry about making it perfect. This is just a brain dump. All right. And what you want to do is you want to consider the roadblocks that somebody's going to face, the mindset issues, the environmental factors, the fears, where they're going to get stuck. And this is where you can borrow a lot of stuff from your SPICE messaging and from your frameworks to actually bring it into here, because your frameworks are something that you've designed a while ago, but now you should have a better understanding of how you can actually take somebody and get them results. All right. So once you've actually done step 2, which is brainstorming the steps, then we're going to move on to step number 3, is you're going to pull out the essential steps. Now, how do you pull out the essential steps? You're going to ask yourself these questions. Which steps give my client a quick win? We just want the very key steps, very key pieces of steps that actually allow people to get the results that they want, right? Then number 2, what steps give my client an immediate sense of clarity? Like when somebody reads these steps, like when they go, that aha moment, this makes sense. That is what we're trying to go after, right? Then number 3, what are the steps that require 20% energy and drive 80% results, right? You can utilize those steps. What steps are unnecessary, right? This is where you're filtering out the steps that aren't very useful. What steps eliminate fear and stress for my clients? These are going to be very, very powerful, right? What steps help me solve the next problem that they will face, or how can I address that before the problem even happens? And so what you're doing now is you're taking all of the steps that you dumped here and you're organizing it in level of importance. Okay, that's step number 3. Then what you're going to do is you're going to step over to step number 4, and you're going to actually turn these steps into pillars. All right. Now, here's an example of what the pillars can look like. So the pillar 1 is a foundational pillar. So this is where you want to include elements of things that will give your clients quick wins and results, right? And you want to have foundational pillars and elements that not having this would make everything else irrelevant, right? So our foundational pillar for remote wellness is Remote Wellness Accelerator, right? Which is the certification program and the business education. Without that, everything else becomes irrelevant, right? Then we move on to pillar number 2, which is the core issue, right? What is the core issue that we are trying to solve? And you want to make it chronological to pillar number 1. And you're aiming to solve the core problem while also painting a picture of success. So for remote wellness, we know that people want to get high paying clients. Why do they want to get high paying clients? Is because they want to make money online. So if people want to make money online, we know the next step is helping them get high paying clients. So that became our pillar number 2. Then pillar number 3 is all these pillars, pillar number 3 and pillar number 4, are all around future pacing and eliminating any fears that the prospect is going to have about the future. Okay? Because once pillar number 2 solves the problem, right, what is the next logical problem that's going to exist? What's the next thing that's going to happen once they solve pillar number 2? All right. So this way, in the prospect's eyes, what's going to happen is they're going to see that you have the exact process to help them. Like step by step, you have everything recognized and everything laid out in chronological order, and you know what's going to happen step by step. All right. So those are the steps that you're going to be going through, right? Then you're going to go into step number 5, which is naming your pillars. All right. And this is where you can actually give them proprietary names. And what we recommend is take 1 to 2 pillars and give it a unique name that's unique to you. Now, we recommend usually doing that to the pillar number 2, which is your core problem. So you can give a fancy name or a specific name or a unique name to the pillar where you're solving the core problem. So primarily, this is going to be pillar number 2. And the rest of them you can leave as is. All right. So the examples that we have here is that you have Remote Wellness Accelerator. What does that mean? That's certification and business training. We have the Perfect Pitch Blueprint. What does that mean? It's creating a sales pitch. See, that's a unique name. SPICE Framework. What does that mean? Creating your messaging framework for marketing. See how we've created names specifically for things. And so you can do this as well with a few of your pillars. We don't recommend to all of them. You want to keep a few of them very generic, but you want to make a few of them very special, especially the one that solves the core problem. All right. So you want to make sure that you actually go through all of these steps thoroughly and take your time. Do not be rushed with this, because remember, the pitch is going to be 75% of it is going to be your pillars. All right. It's super important. And this is what your sales actually depend on. And so really take the time to go through these steps, answer these questions, and go through different iterations to make sure that you can come up with the right names for your pillars. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up this mini training on the step-by-step process to creating your pillars. Now, we just created the names for your pillars. Next, we're going to be going into creating the explanation for your pillars and another mini training that's going to be coming up in this training. So with that being said, we're going to wrap it up here, team. Now back to the main training. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back from that mini training. So by now, you should have created the names to all of the pillars that you're going to be using inside of your pitch. So part one of this entire process is good to go. Now we're going to move on to part two, which is going to be all around creating the explanation. Now, the reason why the explanations are so important, it's because this is what the prospect is going to understand about the pillars, right? Because if you just stated the names of the pillars to the prospect, they're not going to know what the pillars actually mean. So the explanation is what gives the prospect clarity about the pillars. And so to create a very effective explanation, there are a few elements that go along with it. All right. Number one, we want to make sure that it's very simple. It's very clear. There's no fluff. It's straight to the point. All right. Then going on to number two, we want to make sure that we include a lot of benefits. A lot of the benefits are going to come from the logical perspective, but a lot of them are also going to come from the emotional perspective. That way we can bridge both gaps, right? Because people make decisions emotionally and then they justify them with logic. All right. And that's where the benefits are going to come in handy, because emotionally in the discovery, you're going to be digging in deep, but then using the benefits, you're going to be able to appeal to the logical senses of people. Cool. Then we're going to move on to number three, which is including the problem, right? And this could be including the problem that everybody else is running into, like the market is running into. And this could also include the problem that the prospect themselves are facing. So you can actually tie all the problems that are happening in, let's say, the marketplace and the prospect problems that they are facing. You can tie that into your pitch as well. And then last but not least, you're going to have tie downs at the end of every pillar to give the prospect some space to internalize what they have just listened to and heard, and make sure that they agree with you and ask any questions that they need for clarity. Now, a good rule of thumb to follow when creating your explanations is that the first few pillars, you want to make them very in-depth. And then the last few pillars you want to actually make simple. And here's the reason for that. Because the first few pillars is going to be all around the things that the prospect is struggling with right now. Because they're in pain, right? Most people are avoiding pain and seeking pleasure. And so we want to make sure that the first few pillars go super in depth to alleviating their pain. Because if we can alleviate the pain that they are currently in, right, that is going to allow us to build the authority that we need. And then the last few pillars, we're going to be future pacing, right? Because they don't know what's going to happen inside of the future. But what that's going to allow us to do is that's going to allow the prospect to know that we've thought of everything. Not only do we know how to get them out of their current pain that they're in right now, but we also know the pain and the frustration that they're going to feel later down the line and how we're going to be able to alleviate that. All right. So a good practice of this, just to review, is make the first few pillars very in-depth, right? Because they associate themselves with the problem. And then the last few pillars, you want to make sure that they're simple, so they're just future pacing the other problems or alleviating the fears that might come up. All right. Now, moving along, we have put together a framework for the pitch explanation that you guys can use, that you guys can tap into to be able to create your explanations, so it doesn't feel like you're pulling things out of thin air. Now, there's three frameworks that we're going to share with you. The first one we're going to share with you is the feature plus benefit framework. The second one we're going to share with you is the using the pain framework. And the third framework that we're going to share with you is the current state framework. All right. So let's actually dive into the first one, which is the feature plus benefit framework. All right. And the way this framework works right? No pun intended. The way this framework works is that it starts with the feature, then we go over into the logical benefit, then we actually explain the emotional benefit, then we actually go into the tie down. Now, this framework will work really well with pillars 3 and pillars number 4. Usually the last pillars are the ones that this will work really well with. Now, is that saying you can't use these for pillar 1 and pillar 2? You can, but it's not the one that goes very in depth, right? So you can see this example here, and we'll kind of walk you through this. So the last thing that we're going to focus on is maintaining your results for life. Right? See how we do a double take here? Maintaining your results for life. Whenever you say things twice, and this is something that we're going to be talking about in the strategy session training, where whenever you repeat something twice to an individual, they're going to actually write it down because we want them to write the pitch explanation down. We want them to actually take notes. And that is the feature, right? That's the feature of the program that you're offering, or that's the pillar, right? So the final step, once you've lost all of the body fat, we then establish a lifestyle protocol that will help you never gain the weight back. See, logical benefit, never gain the weight back. That's a logical benefit. So what that will do is you will never feel uncomfortable going out with your friends. You're going to feel comfortable inside of your body and not feel like everyone is judging you. Emotional benefit. Right? Because that feeling of judgment, that's an emotion. Things that we feel are emotions. And then we go into a tie down. Does that make sense? What questions do you have on that specifically? See how simple this framework is? So this is probably going to be the simplest framework inside of our list of frameworks that we have, because the other ones go super in depth. So this one is a great one for you to use with, let's say, pillar number 3 and pillar number 4, because those are going to be all around future pacing the prospect and alleviating any fears that they may have. All right. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to framework number 2, which is pain and then the benefits. All right. So let's actually break down how that is going to work. So we first start with the logical pain that the individual is in, and we'll explain what that looks like. Then we're going to go into the emotional pain. Then we're going to talk about the feature, and this is going to be your pillar, right? The logical benefit, the emotional benefit, and then we're going to do a tie down. So this is a little bit of a longer process for us to create the pillar explanation. So here's an example and see what that looks like, right? So you guys have the framework breakdown right here. Now, also the cool thing that we're going to do inside of this framework is actually tie in things that the prospect have said to us in the past. And we're going to actually tie that back into the explanation of the pillar. So this is how it's going to go. So you know how you mentioned how you had a hard time climbing up the stairs due to your weight? See that? That's a logical pain. The logical pain is they have a hard time climbing up the stairs due to their weight. Now, what's the emotional pain that goes with that? And this is making you feel discouraged because you want to be intimate with your wife, but you're afraid to because you're out of shape, right? Emotional pain. That is an emotional pain that the individual is feeling, right? Feeling intimate is an emotional thing. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to help you develop the skills for a complete health transformation, right? See, that's a feature that I brought in so that you can start getting better at cardiovascular health, right? And lose the weight. Logical benefit, right? That's what they're trying to accomplish. Now, here's the emotional benefit, which will allow you to start feeling confident in yourself and give you the courage to be intimate with your wife, which I'm sure will improve your relationship as well, right? See how I asked that question? Now, this is a emotional benefit. And then you go, does that make sense? And then you do a tie down. So that is framework number 2. We're taking what the individual has said and we're bringing it back into the pain and then benefit, and then we're putting that into the explanation. So a lot of these frameworks are fluid. This will give you kind of a skeleton or a box to make sure that this is how you're going to approach it, but you can customize it for the individual as you're going along. All right. Now let's go ahead and move on to framework number 3, which is talking about the current state. And in this one, we're going to actually use the current state of the market, right? This is the problem that the market is facing and the challenges that people are making in the market, right? People that are losing weight, they're doing fad diets. That's the problem that people are facing, or they're doing keto, or they're doing X, Y, and Z, whatever it may be, whatever mistake that your people are making inside of the market, that is what you're going to address. Right? And this is one of the best frameworks because it's very educational, right? And it really allows you to help the prospect see the price of not taking action as well. So it's kind of like a double whammy, which is really cool. So the way this works is you're going to start with the market mistake. Then you're going to go into the problem. Then you're going to explain why it's a problem. Then you're going to explain the ultimate consequences of the problem. Then you're going to go into your feature, which is your pillar. Then you're going to talk about the benefit, which is the opposite of the problem. All right, we're going to inverse the problem. And then we're going to tie the benefit of the benefit, which is going to be an emotional one. And then we're going to tie it down. All right, I know that's a long one. I know that's a doozy, but stick with me here and the example is going to make sense. So you have your framework breakdown up there, but let's actually walk you through this example. All right, so the biggest area that most people struggle with when it comes to losing weight is not actually losing weight, it's actually keeping it off. See? That's a market mistake. It's most people are making this mistake. Now, the reason why this is a problem, see, this is where we introduce the problem. One, that every program out there promotes fad diets, right? And then two, that it's a repetition cycle where your metabolism is fluctuating and then you need to keep eating less and less to lose weight, right? Now, why is this a problem? Well, what happens is many people will hit a plateau, they get frustrated, and they just end up quitting. That's why it's a problem. Now, what's the consequence of the problem? The worst part about that is you never get out of this endless cycle of being less fat and then more fat, right? You never get to maintain out of that. That's the ultimate consequence problem. And we're just using this as an example, so I'm pretty sure that you guys will come up with a better one. So then instead, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on metabolic recharge, right? Let's say that is a feature. And that could also be my unique mechanism. So see how I did that there? You can actually incorporate your unique mechanism inside of the feature. Now then we go into the benefit, which is opposite of the problem. By returning the body back to baseline, you start feeling better and losing weight, and it allows you to eat more. So what I did was we actually tied this back into the problem that we have here, which is, hey, programs promote fad diets, which puts your body into stress. And number two, it's this repetitive cycle and your metabolism fluctuates. So I tied that back into right here. You return your body back to baseline and you start feeling better. Now, what's the benefit of that? And ultimately, you'll be able to sustainably lose weight, fit back into your old clothes, and just feel comfortable in your body again. Notice how I'm tying emotional benefits. Now, I could have done a better job of creating this as a more emotional bridge, but the benefit of the benefit is usually a lot of emotional benefits that they're going to achieve from solving that problem. And then we tie it down again. All right, so moving along here, those were the three frameworks, team, where we went over, which is the feature plus benefit, then the pain, then benefit, then the current state framework that we went into. So those are the three frameworks. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to switch over to a mini training where we're going to walk you through step by step on how to actually create your explanation for the pillars that you have created for your pitch. So with that being said, let's switch over to this mini training now. Welcome team to this mini training where we're going to be walking you through the step-by-step process on how to create your pillar explanation, right? Because without the explanation, the pillars are pretty much useless. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we are going to be opening up the pillar explanation creation worksheet. All right. You should have this pulled up right here. And this is going to be the worksheet that we are working through. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to paste all of the pillars that we just created in the previous worksheet. All right. Because we want to be able to transfer it and we want to keep things nice and clean. We want to make sure that you're not like split screening and doing a whole bunch of stuff. Now you can, if you wanted to duplicate this window and split screen this, but having the pillars right up here is going to be very helpful. It's going to help you stay organized. It's going to help you visually see everything and you're going to be able to go through the process more efficiently. All right. Then going on to step number 2, what you're actually going to do here is you're going to select a pillar. All right. You're going to select a pillar. Then you're going to select one of the frameworks. Right? So we have the 3 different types of frameworks here. We have the feature plus benefit framework. We have the pain and then benefit framework. And then we have the current state framework. So you're going to select one pillar from here. You're going to select a framework, and then you are going to create the explanation for the framework. All right? Because your goal should be to incorporate the key elements rather than focusing on fancy words. A lot of people are going to try to get fancy with this and make it like out of this world cool. Don't worry about that. Make it simple, make it concise, make it precise. That way it's very easily understandable. All right. Then that's what you're going to do for all of your pillars. You're going to focus on pillar number 1. Then you're going to go back up. You're going to pick another pillar, right? Then you're going to pick another framework, and you're going to go throughout this process to create your 3 to 4 pillars, whatever it is that you are aiming for. Now, one thing that we do want to remind you of, here's an example of how you can switch it up using different pillars. Now, the common mistakes that people will make is that they're going to take one framework, right? They'll take one framework and then create all of their pillars around one framework. It's not going to work that way. Here's an example of if we were to do it again and how we would go about doing it. So framework number 2 is what we would use for pillar number 1. Okay, framework number 2 is what we would use for pillar number 1. Why? Because we are trying to solve the main problem that the person is having, and usually the first 2 pillars are around solving the problem that the person is currently having. So we want to make them a little bit more detailed. All right, so you can see here, framework number 3, right? So framework number 2 is going to be the pain and then benefit. The pain and then benefit is the one that I want to use for pillar number 1. Then I want to use the current state for pillar number 2, and then for framework number 1, which is feature plus benefit, because that's a simple one, I'm going to use for 3 and 4. Now, a common question that I get all the time is people ask, do I need to have a 4th pillar explanation? Do I even need to have a 4th pillar? You actually don't need to have a 4th pillar. Like, the more you can keep it to 3s, the human brain comprehends 1, 2, and 3 much better than 4 things. Now, is it a deal breaker that you have 4? No, just do whatever it is necessary for you to do. And if that is what you need because you have 4 pillars inside of your processes, then go for it. All right. Now, once you have written all of your pillars, then the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go through each and every individual pillar, and then you're going to want to simplify, right? The explanation. So you're going to go through the explanation and you're going to simplify, simplify, simplify. You're going to make them simpler. You're going to make it concise. You're going to go through multiple iterations. You're going to read it out loud. This doesn't make sense. You're probably going to scrap it, but that's really what you're doing. So first, you have all of your pillars up here. Then you're going to select one pillar, one framework, and you're going to get to writing. You're going to do the same thing for pillar 2, same thing for pillar 3, and same thing for pillar 4 if you have it. Then you're going to simplify. Break it down, make it simple, make sure that it's not complicated. Then you're going to be able to use different tools like ChatGPT. You can use the Hemingway app to actually break it down to a 3rd grade reading level if you wanted to do that. If you didn't and you wanted to use ChatGPT to actually make it flow better, you can feed your pillars into ChatGPT and we can create another tutorial around that on how to actually do that. But if you prompt it to go, hey, this is a pitch that I am writing for my sales process where I'm going to be selling these types of people. This is the first pillar that I am going to be explaining. Help me make this flow a little bit better. Add this type of tonality to it. And then you're going to be able to break that down and make sure that it sounds natural to you. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this wraps up the mini training on how to create your explanation for your pillars. If you have any questions as you're going about it, or you would like feedback, or you want some clarity on this process or more clarity on this process, go ahead and let us know inside of the student community so we can actually help you out with this. And if there's anything that you want to review in this process, you can go ahead and actually share this document inside of the community before waiting for it to go final, if you'd like to actually do that. Or you can actually share the final version and we can actually mold that and create that then and there. So if you have any questions, go ahead and let us know inside of the student community. And with that being said, we're going to jump right back into the main training. All right, mi amigos and mi amigas, welcome back. And so by now, you should not only have the names to your pillars, but you should also have a very good understanding and a very good written explanation for those pillars as well. So I hope that mini training was helpful and it got you to go through the steps that you need to take to get your explanation in order and get it really dialed in. So a few things to remember, and we want to make sure that these are also best practices that we're sharing with you. If you do the pillar explanation correctly, what we're trying to make happen is that the prospect will want to say, that makes total sense. Like they have this aha moment. And that's what we want, right? And that's what will happen is if you keep the pillars and the explanation very simple, keep it extremely clear, and all we're trying to do is relay how the prospect is going to go from point A to point B while working with you. Now, another thing to remember is when you first put your explanation for your pillars together, it's going to be a bit choppy, and that's actually normal. So read it out loud, tweak it, make it sound smooth, and make it sound natural. It's going to take a few iterations and multiple times of you working on it to get the final version, but don't major in the minors. Don't get stuck. Just keep moving forward. If you can't figure one of the pillars out or create an explanation, just move on to the next one and then come back to it. And you'll realize that the ideas will come to you when you're not even thinking about it, right? Because it's in your subconscious. Another tool that's going to come in handy is your swipe file. If you haven't worked with enough clients, you're like, hey, I want to collect more data. I want to be able to use that. Your swipe file is going to come in handy. And the best thing is once you create your version 1.0 of your pitch, you're going to start doing outbound calls. You're going to start doing quick chats. You're going to start doing strategy sessions. And then you're going to start to gain more insight about your prospects and how to structure your explanations and how to make them better, right? So what you're doing is you're just creating version 1.0, right? You have a hypothesis, and so you're going to test that hypothesis into the real world, and then you're going to be able to create your next version with it. And that's how we actually just go ahead and do it. We create our version 1.0, we test it out into the field, and in the field is where we create multiple iterations of it because we're able to actually throw it against the wall, right? It's like a crash dummy. Your pitch is like a crash dummy, and you're throwing it around, you're testing it, you're making it foolproof, and over time, it's going to become very, very, very robust. So I want to remind you that in your first go around, it might not be perfect, but over time, it's going to get better. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up the training on us creating the pillars. If you have any questions about this section or anything that we discussed, make sure to go ahead and ask us inside of the student community. And with that being said, we'll catch you guys in the next training section. All right, team, welcome back. And in this training section, we're going to be talking about creating the high level promise. All right. So without further ado, let's jump right on in. So the first thing we want to do is let's get our head above water and see where we are at. All right. So we know there's going to be 4 steps to us creating the perfect pitch blueprint for our pitch, right? So the first one was creating the pillars to results, which we already did. Now we're going to actually be working on the high level promise. The next thing we're going to move on to is creating the delivery, and then we're going to put it all together. All right. So what is the high level promise? So the high level promise is the 1 to 2 sentences that clarify and states the end result, because we know everybody buys the end result. They're not buying the process. They're buying the future, right? The people don't buy features, they buy futures. So in the pitch, we have 3 phases to it, which is the high level promise, the pillars to results, and the delivery. And this is what we're going to be working on in this training section. And so the flow of this and what this is going to look like is you're going to start your pitch with the high level promise right after the transition and coaching. And we'll walk you through this in the strategy session training. So you're going to do your transition and coaching, then you're going to jump right into the pitch. And the way the pitch starts is with the high level promise, right? And our goal with the high level promise is to relay to the prospect that they can start associating themselves with the result, not the process, right? Because if they get too caught up with the process, they'll want to understand all the nuances, which can lead them to actually being more overwhelmed and confused. And we know that confused prospects don't buy. Now, another thing that the high level promise actually does, it raises certainty, right? What does that mean? It allows the prospect to know that this isn't your first rodeo. This is something that you've done over and over and over again. Like you've crafted this and made this into an exact science, right? Because when you go to a doctor and a doctor says, hey, we're going to take these protocols, 1, 2, and 3. You're like, whoa, this person's on it. And that's the kind of vibe that we want to give to the prospect as well. Now, to create a effective high-level promise, the key elements that we need to have is we need to have a specific outcome in a specific time. Okay, we need to have a specific outcome in a specific time. Now, the framework for creating the high-level promise is laid out here. This is going to be the number of pillars. See, that's why we need to actually create our pillars to results first, because then we will be able to place our pillars here to get you from current situation to desired situation in an approximate amount of time. So here's an example. This is going to be the 4-step process, or 4 steps to help you go from weighing 250 pounds and getting closer to 150 pounds and shedding the stubborn fat in 24 weeks. All right. Now, the way that you want to design your high-level promise is that you want to design it in a way that you can actually tweak it during the sales process, right? So if you get somebody who's like, hey, they're not going to be able to lose weight in 24 weeks, well, you can go, cool, hey, you weigh 150 pounds and we got to get you to 135 pounds. We're actually going to be able to do that in 12 weeks, whatever it may be, right? You want to be able to have the ability to change your high-level promise per individual and make it specific to the person that you're speaking with. Otherwise, it's going to be too generic and the person's going to actually see through it and they're like, this doesn't sound very realistic to me, right? And this is where you can tie in a lot of the goals. So if you was to do this all over again, hey, these are going to be the 4 steps that you need to take to go from here to here in X amount of time. And you got to be realistic, right? Like if somebody can't lose 100 pounds in 24 weeks, then you got to be honest with them. But this is where we have nuance here, where we say getting closer to 150 pounds. I didn't say we're going to take you from 250 to 150 in 24 weeks. This is why it's very nuanced to be realistic with the high-level promise, because you don't want to promise something that you cannot deliver on. All right. So moving along here, team, let's actually dive into creating the high level promise. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch over to a quick mini training where we're going to walk you through the step-by-step process on how to create your high level promise. So with that being said, let's switch over to the mini training now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages, welcome to this mini training. We're going to walk you through how to create your high level promise. All right. It's going to be a step-by-step. It's going to be a pretty quick one. And so we're going to jump right on into this. So first thing you want to go ahead and do is you want to open up the worksheet and make a copy as usual. You should already know how to do that. But if you do not, very simply, you just come right over here, you go to file, you go make a copy, and you have a copy of the worksheet. All right. Then the first thing we want to do is we want to paste all of our pillars. You're like, Coach Malik, why do you keep having us paste pillars from worksheet to worksheet, right? Think of it this way. You're making worksheet 1, you're progressing to the next worksheet, then you're progressing to the next one. And then what you're going to do is you're going to have a final worksheet that's going to compile all of this together. So I want to make sure that everything stays organized, because if we can be precise with the way that we think, we can be precise with our language. All right. And so the first thing we want to do is we want to take all of our pillars and dump them into here, because that's going to be very beneficial. All right. Now it's optional. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. If you're like, I just want to look at the other sheet and then look at this one, you totally can. If you have a second monitor that you are using, right, which is really awesome because you want to have the real estate to be able to go through and be able to see multiple documents. All right. So step 2 is we're going to actually craft our high level promise. Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to use the formula from above. You're going to use this formula and you're going to craft the high level promise right into here. Right. So the whole goal is you want to keep it generic so you can adjust the current situation and the desired situation on the fly, and also the time frame based on the prospect that you are speaking with. All right. So you have an example here, right? This is going to be the 4 steps to help you go from X to Z, right? So current situation to desired situation, and help you lose whatever the goal is in a specific time frame. Okay. And so this should be very simple, very straightforward for you to create, because again, you want to simplify and make it very, very, very clear once you've actually created it. And that's why simplification is a major step in this entire processes. Okay. So once you've created your high level promise, right, make a dump of it. If you need to actually create multiple iterations of it, that's the best part, right? If it takes you a day or 2, that's okay. Just write what comes to mind and then over time improve it, because that's when the best ideas come. When you write an idea, then you go back to it, you're able to actually tweak it and make it better. And so that is the whole goal around it. And then you can use this example to be able to create your high level promise. That way you have it ready to go. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up the high level promise creation mini training. If you have any questions about this training or any questions about creating your high level promise, please let us know inside of the student community. This one should be fairly simple, right? All you got to do is paste all your pillars, you know all your pillars, then you use the formula to craft your high-level promise, and then refine it, break it down, and you're pretty much done. If you want to use ChatGPT, you want to use AI to be able to refine your high-level promise, then we highly recommend doing so. So with that being said, team, we're going to wrap it up here. Now let's jump back to the main training. All right, team, welcome back. So by now, you should have your high-level promise created. So what have we worked on so far? So we've got the high-level promise created, we got the pillar steps created, and we got the pillar explanation created. You guys are doing so amazing. You guys are doing so great. You're kicking butt, and we're really putting this pitch together. So I'm really excited to actually bring this all together, and we got one more step left. Then we're going to go into putting it all together to make sure that it flows seamlessly. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up the training section where we actually go into creating the high-level promise. If you have any questions about this section or anything that we discussed, make sure to go ahead and let us know inside of the student community. And with that being said, we'll catch you guys in the next training section. All right, team, welcome back. And in this training section, we're going to be going into creating the delivery. All right. And the delivery is going to be the final portion of the pitch. And then after that, we're going to be tying all of this together to make sure that it flows seamlessly. So let's actually break down what we've actually created so far. So step one is where we broke down creating the pillars to the results. So we did the explanation and the names. In the previous training, we did the high level promise. Now we're going to go into creating the delivery. And then we're right there in the final stretch, we're going to be putting it all together. So in this section specifically, we're going to be talking about the delivery. And the delivery is the last step in creating the perfect pitch. All right. Now, the delivery actually explains how everything will actually be delivered and why it's going to be delivered in that specific way. So once we've explained the pillars, right, the person understands what the process is going to look like. Now, naturally, human brain is going to go to how is this process going to happen? How is this going to be delivered? How am I going to receive these results? Now, let's actually take a look at the key factors that we need to have an effective delivery created, right? Number one, we want to keep it very high level. What'll end up happening, the mistake that a lot of people make, is that they'll actually start getting into the nitty-gritty when it comes to the delivery. They'll start going into, well, this is how I'm going to text you, and this is the tone of my text message. No. Keep it 30,000 foot overview. Make it very beneficial for the prospect, right? You want to give them a very, very high overview, and we're not getting into the weeds of things, all right? Keep it simple. Keep it short. You want to set the proper expectations, but again, not go deep into the weeds, right? You're just trying to alleviate the concerns and fears that they have, but not go into the weeds, right? Then number three, eliminate any concerns that they have. Hey, how long am I going to get support for? What's going to happen afterwards, right? For some prospects, it's going to feel like a black hole because they don't know what's going to happen next. So you've explained the pillars, but they don't know how the pillars are actually going to be onboarded to them and what that's actually going to look like. And the big question that you will hear is, will I get enough support and help when I actually need it? And so we just want to be able to alleviate those concerns for the prospect, all right? So let's actually walk you through a example of what that actually will look like, all right? So the first thing we want to get into is the delivery transition. Now, this is going to be very, very set, so you can just take exactly this one. It doesn't have to change. Now, the delivery transition is what actually helps you go from the pillars into the delivery. Because if you don't transition from the pillars into the delivery, then it's just weird. Then like, hey, these are the pillars, and now let me actually explain to you how it's actually delivered. So you need these transitional statements, and we'll talk more about these transitional statements in the strategy session training and how they come in handy. All right. So the delivery transition, really simple. Hey, the next thing I'm going to walk you through is how we're going to deliver everything to you. Is that cool? Right? We get a confirmation, then we go into it. Hey, to help you start making progress towards your goals of losing 250 pounds and getting to 150 pounds, it'll be a 90-day process, right? Everything is going to be customized, right? Because you guys are going to be doing your one-on-one program and everything's going to be customized so the person feels comfortable doing that. So everything is going to be customized. Once you come on board, we're going to give you some initial intake homework to complete. And once you're done with that, I'm going to personally hop on a one-on-one call with you where we're going to map out your entire game plan. All right. So we're going to go over the exact 90-day game plan, everything you need to do on a daily basis to start getting results, how often we're going to meet, how you can get a hold of me during the week, and all the stuff that you need to be successful. Does that make sense? Notice that tie down? See, I didn't get into what we're going to be talking about in the 90-day game plan. I didn't get into what I'm going to be telling them to do on a daily basis. I didn't get into how often we're going to be meeting. I didn't schedule the times. Like, I'm not worried about that. I just want to alleviate their fear that you're some bozo that's going to take their money and run away, right? Even though you haven't talked about pricing yet. You just want to let them know, hey, this is my process. This is what I do. I am a professional, and this is how my process is. That way they get a good understanding of the process and they're not left in limbo. All right. But notice it was a very high 30,000 foot overview. We did not go into the details whatsoever. So now that you understand what the delivery looks like and how it's supposed to be structured, let's actually go into the delivery creation. So what we're going to do, team, is we're going to switch over to a mini training where we're going to walk you through the step-by-step process on how to actually create your delivery. So with that being said, let's switch over to that mini training now. All right, team, welcome to another mini training. And in this mini training, we're going to be talking about how to create the delivery for your pitch, right? So this is the third part of your pitch. We have the high level promise, then we have the pillars to results, and now we're going to be jumping into the delivery. So the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to open up the worksheet, which is the delivery creation worksheet. You can open it up right here. And then what you want to do is you want to go ahead and make a copy. If you don't know how to make a copy, let's walk you through that. Let's go to File, Make a Copy, and ta-da, you have a copy, and you can start working through the prompts inside of here. So the first thing that we want to do, right? We're not going to copy our pillars over, right? Because we've been doing that in a lot of the other worksheets. The first thing we want to do is we want to actually list out the support process. So what you're going to do is you're going to make a list on how you're going to support your clients to get from their current situation to their desired situation. So just like your frameworks, you're just going to write step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. What are the steps that you are going to provide them with support? Are you going to give them one-on-one calls? Are you going to give text messages? How are you going to check in? Do you have a student community? What does that look like? What are all the support processes that you have to support your clients? All right, that's the first thing you want to do. Make it a brain dump. It's not supposed to be pretty. Just break it down. Then what you're going to do is you're going to head over to step number 2, and now we're going to narrow everything down. So once you've listed all of them, you're going to narrow down to the 2 to 3 most crucial steps that you need to take. All right, you want to make them very, very, very compelling. And what they should be able to do is they should be able to give the prospect certainty that you're going to be able to deliver them with the results that they're actually looking for. All right. And this is where you're going to be going into, okay, these are the 3 most important and crucial support processes that I'm going to be able to support my clients with. All right. So here, let's do a recap. We did a massive dump here on the support processes. Then we are now going to narrow them down to the 2 to 3 most important ones. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go over to step number 3, which is all about adding the benefits to it. So you're going to list out all the benefits of the 2 to 3 support processes. Okay, this is what I'm going to do to support you. Then this is how I'm going to support you, the benefits of that. All right. And then you can also list out the consequences for not having the support processes, right? It's going to be very important for you to be able to list that out. That way you can explain, hey, if you don't have this, this is what actually happens. So first you make a dump, then you narrow it down, then you add the benefits, then it's time to actually write out the delivery, right? Writing out the delivery is probably the most simplest portion. So you're going to take your 2 to 3 top support processes and benefits, and then you're going to write them in a very similar fashion. All right. We're going to keep the delivery transition the same. So you can just copy this down here. And now you can actually use this script and actually fit your support processes into this. So you can mold this, hey, to help you start making progress towards your goals, it's going to be a let's say 90-day process or 12-week process or whatever it may be. Everything is customized. And now you can add the way that you're going to be able to provide support to your students. Are you going to give them an intake form? Okay, cool. You can leave that in there. Once you've done that, I'm going to actually do a one-on-one call with you. Well, if you're going to do that, you can utilize that. So this should be pretty universal to what you guys are going to be doing. However, you want to be able to take the 2 to 3 top ways that you're going to support your clients, and you want to add this in there. You want to tweak this to your own language, and you want to be able to simplify it. All right. And so use the example that we've given you in here and mold your support processes to this. Now, if your support processes are very similar to this, take this and mold it to your language, right? Write it the way that you would speak. Simplify it if you need to for you. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that was the step-by-step process on how to create your delivery. Let's do a quick recap really quickly to make sure that we are on the same page. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to dump all the ways that you're going to provide your clients with support. Then you're going to narrow down to the 2 to 3 most crucial steps and things that they're going to get support with and the things that they're actually going to need. And so really approach it from the standpoint of what is it that's going to benefit the prospect. Like when the prospect hears these 2 to 3 things, are they going to be like, wow, they're over delivering? That's the approach that you actually want to take. Then you want to add the benefits of having those 2 to 3 support processes, right? What's the benefit of it and what's the consequence of not having it? That way you can actually describe that within your delivery, and then you're going to use the example to write it out. Then you're going to condense it, right? Keep it simple, right? Here's the 3 elements. Keep it very high level. Keep it benefit filled. So you want the prospect internally to go, wow, I can't believe they're doing this for me. That's the type of feeling that you want to deliver to the prospect. Then number 2, keep it simple and short. Don't go into the details. And number 3, write it in a way which will eliminate concerns for your prospect. So that was a quick recap, team. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask us inside of the student community so we can clarify this for you. With that being said, we're going to wrap up the step-by-step process on how to create your delivery. With that being said, we're going to wrap it up here, and we'll catch you guys in the main training. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. So by now you should have your delivery created, and that was the final step. And I just want to congratulate you. We are almost there. We're almost across the finish line. We got our high level promise created. We got the pillars to results created. We now have our delivery created, and now it's time to put it all together. And that's what we're going to be doing next. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap it up here. If you have any questions about this section or anything we discussed, make sure to go ahead and ask us inside of the student community. The next training is going to be all around putting everything, all the assets that you have created, putting it all together. That way we have the final version of the pitch ready, and we are ready to jump into our sales processes and actually start closing some high paying clients. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, let us know, and we will catch you guys in the next training section. All right, team, welcome back. I am so excited because all of the hard work that we've been lining up with and we've been going through, now it's going to come and pay off. All right. And so in this section, we're actually going to be putting the entire pitch together and making sure that it flows and making sure that it is cohesive. All right. So now you should have all the parts of your pitch assembled. Right? We should have everything ready to go, not assembled. We should have all of the pieces ready to go. And what we're now going to do is we are now going to assemble them. All right. So let's make sure that we do a recap of what we've actually created. So first, we actually worked on the pillar results. Right? Then we worked on the high level promise. Then we worked on the delivery. Now we're in step 4, the final step, which is putting it all together. Now, once we put the pitch together, that's where the magic behind where you're going to be reading it through and tweaking it and making it sound really natural actually comes in. So it's actually very important for us to put it together and actually make it flow. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's switch over to a quick mini training where we're going to walk you through how to structure your entire pitch with all of the things that you've created from the high level promise, from the pillars to results, from your delivery, and how to put it all together, make it flow cohesively. What are the other elements that are going to go through that? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's switch over to this mini training now. All right, all right, all right. Welcome back, team. And in this mini training, we're going to be walking you through the step-by-step process on how to structure your script. We're almost there. We got all the assets together. Now we just got to compile them. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up this worksheet, and this is going to be the final pitch worksheet. And this is also going to be the worksheet that you will be submitting into the student community. So first and foremost, we got to open up the worksheet. If you want to make a copy, you can go ahead and make a copy right here, file, make a copy, and you should be able to work through this. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to compile all the pieces. All right, we're going to want to take everything from all different worksheets and we want to bring it right over here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to paste the high level promise. All right, then once we pasted the high level promise, that should be fairly simple. Then we are going to paste the pillars and the explanation. All right, so it's going to be name of the pillar and then the explanation right underneath it. Name of the pillar and then explanation right underneath it. This should be fairly easy. You're just copy and pasting. And then it says right here, pillar number 4, if applicable. If you have a pillar number 4, you can add it in here. If you don't have one, that is okay. You do not have to make one up last minute just because we have an option here. You can just simply delete this. If you do not have a pillar number 4, just delete this. If you have a pillar number 4, add it in there. Common sense, guys. We got this. Come on. Then going into step number 3, you're going to paste the delivery, right? You wrote the delivery. Now you just got to take it from the other worksheet and paste it into here. Now what you've done is now we're organized, right? We have our high level promise. We have our pillars and explanation, and we have our delivery. Now we move into step number 4, where we just got to put it all together. All right. So the way we're going to put it all together is you're going to take the pieces from above and you're going to paste them in order, right? What's the order? High level promise first, pillars and explanation second, then the third is the delivery. All right, so let's walk you through what that looks like. So there's going to be a transition from the high level promise. All right, so you're going to have to start with a transition and then you go into the high level promise. So it's going to go great on your piece of paper. And again, we're going to be able to use this because we're going to paste this into the strategy session script. So that's where we're adding the transitions in here. Great. On your piece of paper, write down 1 through X. So if you have 3 pillars, this is going to be a number 3. If you have 4 pillars, it's going to be a number 4. Right? You should have either 3 or 4 pillars, nothing more than that. All right. So this is where we're going to go into, and this is what it'll sound like. It'll go great. On your piece of paper, I want you to write down 1, 2, 3, and make sure that you have a good bit of space in between to take some notes. All right. And this is where you're going to enter the pillars. So 1, 2, and 3. Right, so you're going to enter it up here where the X is, and then you're also going to enter it up here. So 1, 2, and 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it may be. So it'll look something like this: 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, insert the total number of pillars here. Then you're going to wait silently. Okay, this is going to be a part of your script. Then right here, you are going to insert the high level promise. You're just going to copy and paste it. And then leave this transition word in here. All of these are transition words. You got to leave it in there. So all the red is what you're going to be pasting into. So then you're going to paste your high level promise right here. Once you've done that, you're going to move along to the pillars and explanation. So what you're going to do is you're going to take all your pillars from above. You're going to insert the name and you're going to insert the explanation. Then you're going to insert the name and you're going to insert the explanation. You're going to insert the name and you're going to insert the explanation. And if you have a pillar number 4, you're going to do that as well. Then we're going to run into the delivery transition, right? Which is here. Hey, the next thing I'm going to walk you through is how we deliver everything to you. Is that cool? They're going to say cool. Then you're going to paste your delivery here as well. All right. Once you've done that, once you put all the pieces together, whether you're doing it in a Google Doc, you're doing it in ClickUp, whatever software that you want to use, then we are actually going to go through and read this out loud. Once it has been structured, read it out loud a dozen times. Rewrite it if needed. Make it sound natural to give it your personality. All right. You want to make sure that you're able to read it out loud. Then you want to make it sound natural. So once you've read it out loud, once it's flowing, now you want to make it sound natural. So when reading your script, make sure that it's complete, it's simple, and it provides the prospect with clarity, because confused prospects will not buy. All right. So the common mistakes that I see when we are creating and people are putting together their pitches is that most people will end up word vomiting. Like they have this massive pillar where they just word vomit on the prospect, right? That's not what we want. And so as you're reading this through, what you want to do is you want to break it up into sections, right? So if you have a massive pillar that's describing a whole bunch of stuff, every 45 seconds, you want to be able to throw in here, does that make sense? You still with me, right? right? You want to throw in these statements in between each section. So if let's say you have pillar number 1, it's broken up into 3 sections because it's going to be a long one. Then you have in here where you have a couple sentences and then you go, does that make sense? And then you continue and then you go, right? You're on the same page as me? Cool. And then you finish up with the 3rd sentence and then you still have your tie down. So what you're doing is you're kind of adding breaks in the middle of the pillars. That way it doesn't sound like a word vomit. Because if you just word vomit on people, you're going to lose them during the sales. Okay? Because if you word vomit on people, you're just going to end up losing the sale because the person is just going to be like, this is too overwhelming for me and I don't understand. All right. We're going to dive deeper into this in the strategy session training, but you can actually implement this right now if you needed to, where if you're reading this and pillar number 1 is very long and you want to break it up every 30 to 45 seconds, you want to add in these transition words in here, just questions like, right? You still with me? Does that make sense? Right? And so you want to be able to add those things in there so that way it sounds like a natural dialogue. Last but not least, you want to memorize it, right? When you're on calls, you should not have to read this word for word. You can have it open as reference, right? And when you look at pillar number 2, you should already know what pillar number 2 is because you've practiced it and rehearsed it so many times because you know it so well and you can tailor it to the needs of the prospect. So really just make sure that you compile it first, right? We compile everything, then you put it all together. And the biggest thing is breaking it down to make sure that it sounds natural. And this is going to take iterations to it, right? This is the skill. Reps times knowledge equals skill. Right? And so to develop the skill of you being very good at sales, this is something that you're going to have to put the reps in and to memorize this, to get this going. And it's going to take a lot of iterations for you to be able to have your perfect pitch. But don't worry, don't major in the minors. Let's get this going. Let's create this fully. And we're going to support you through this and make sure that you actually create a pitch that's going to really get you the results that you are looking for. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up this mini training on how to structure your pitch. Now, this is a document that you are going to be submitting inside of your action steps. So if you have any questions about this, go ahead and ask us inside of the student community. And with that being said, we're going to wrap it up here. Now back to the main training. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. And by now, you should have your pitch compiled. You should have it ready to go. You should have your version 1.0 pitch ready to deploy. And I'm very, very, very excited. I'm very proud of you for putting all of this hard work in and actually compiling all of this together, because this is going to be such a crucial piece inside of your sales processes to make sure that you have the ability to get high paying clients because you have such a good offer. You have such a good pitch. You have everything dialed in and you are ready to go. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up this training on how to put it all together. If you have any questions about the section or anything that we discussed, make sure to go ahead and ask us inside of the student community. We look forward to seeing all of the progress from your pitch, everything that you've put together, everything that you've actually designed inside of the student community. We look forward to giving you feedback. We look forward to reading all the amazing pitches that you guys have actually created. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap it up here and we'll catch you guys in the next training.